Curse words and sarcasm were used in the making of this video. Hello, Jamie from Salty Card Creations and the Potty Mouth Crafters Society, back with the reveal wheel of Judgment today. Or maybe it's the crystal ball of Judgment. I don't know. I mean, you know, both of them, maybe. Anyways. So I started with my piece of background paper that I'm going to use for this one. It's a Tim Holtz one. I don't know. I don't even know what it's called. Anyways, it had some gorgeous lettering on it, and that's kind of, I liked the look of it, and it worked for, you know, those crystal ball hands. So for this one, I did do a kind of a demo card just because I needed to see how big I needed the circle to be. I will say this one is a little bit longer, so it's almost a half an hour. I decided to keep it where it was because, well, I'm going to show you how to make your own reveal wheel today, you know, to fit your needs. So I kind of figured out my circle size, what was going to work on the inside of that circle. I wanted it to just be a little bit smaller than the actual globe itself. So if you don't have this stand set, you have a snow globe that, you know, would work, or has a circle, you could definitely make it work for this style card. Finding the hands, I'm sure you can find some clip art out there if you are looking. So for this one, I started with my stamped image on top, and then because I did these for the roadie get together that we had in Minnesota, I did this as a card class, and so I did, you know, I did it in steps. It's usually how I do it. And so because I had my, you know, my demo kind of done, or my, I wouldn't say this was actually my original card on this one, but I knew what I wanted, and so it was easier to build once I had that demo. I don't usually do a demo card. I usually just start from scratch and go, but because I'm building my own reveal wheel for this one, I wanted to make sure it was going to be on point. So I'm using a Lawn Fawn die here. It's probably their pull tab, one that comes in their pull tab die. They have multiple ones that have the little notch out, but you just line it up on the bottom. I put both of my pieces of paper together because I have that bottom piece there is going to be my tablecloth per se, and so I wanted that to line up with my other one, and so it's just easier to put them both together, run them through the die cut machine at the same time. If you have a punch, you can use a half circle punch there if you need to. So for this one, I needed to I looked through my scalloped circles. I have the Spellbinders scalloped circle stack. This one is a fairly large one. It's going to end up taking up, I think it's, I don't want to say it's a 4-inch one. Maybe it's 3 by 3/4 of an inch or so. I mean, when we flip over the card, we'll probably see a little bit better. Can I tell by the mat? 1, 2, 3. So yeah, it's probably about a 3.5 to 3 1/4. I think it's a 3 1/4 inch scallop circle. So I die cut it out of just some scrap piece of paper, and then I fold it into quarters, or fold it in half and then half again. I find my center point. I took the scissors and kind of like snipped a little hole there, and then took a pen, and I have a second one die cut out. I think I ended up with 2 to make my actual, shall we say, template. And then I just kind of poke the hole through on that one, kind of making sure that it looks like it's going to be centered. You know, I'm not always 100% on center mark, so this way I could make sure it's about as close to center as possible. Now, the other thing is I want to bring in my circle die that I used for my actual crystal ball. So I want to make a template with it to kind of figure out where I can, how many circles or how many things I can put in my crystal ball. So I kind of did it on this one. I probably did this one a little bit, probably twice. I probably didn't need to do it as many times as I did it, but it helped me when I came down to doing my final one. So this one I just kind of, okay, I can get 3 on there is kind of what I wanted to know. And it kind of shows me the spacing on them, like how far apart they need to be, that sort of thing. So the other thing on this one is I need to kind of figure out where my brad is going to sit so it doesn't actually show when I'm using it. Because this one, I did move I think I moved my hands down just a little bit. And my hands on the base piece here are just for, you know, placing your die cuts for when you run it through. And then it helps later when you're lining stuff up, you just, you know, glue over the top and kind of match those lines. I hope that makes sense. So with the reveal wheel, you'll need a scallop circle, and then you're going to need another circle piece just to kind of work as where your rotating piece is going to kind of go through. So I just used the punched out circle from my front panel. That way I didn't have to punch out anymore. You don't need a circle that big, but just a circle that you can get some foam tape on. And then of course your brad through. So I put my brad through this way to start with, but ultimately I'm going to want the head on the top side because of this one's, how shall I say, just because my brad placement on this one and my opening are so close to where that opening is, I didn't want the brad to kind of like poke through. You'll see what I mean in a little bit here. So when I did it, I just kind of, I wiggled it a little bit to do this one. I put it on the top for this one because I obviously was going to remove it. But that's where you'll see, like, my brad is going to need to be the other way. So I think I do switch it on this one just because I knew that it was going to probably cause me issues. You know, it tends to do that. But usually when you do one, a lot of times they will do them upside down, and so you can, you know, remove the reveal wheel. I wanted to make sure that I was going to put this low enough that you can still kind of move it with your finger on the bottom, but I also don't want my top piece, see where the top little knobbers kind of, if you don't have it far enough up, you're going to have, you know, the little divots are going to show in the circle, and so you don't want that. So I probably included more in here than I needed to, but it really was, this is the process to kind of make your own. So I'm just going to take my stack of circles here, and I do kind of measure them to make sure that it's all going to be in the center. I want to make sure that my center hole there is going to be right on. So I did, you know, actually pull out the ruler and make sure that it was, this one is a center mark ruler. It came with my Make Art Station. Would have I bought it? Otherwise, probably not. I would have just mapped it. But I'm going to make my circle or punch all of them at the same time. You know, I did a stack because, well, we were doing, I think I did 5 or 6 of them all at once. And I did the same thing with my little circles. So to start to, before, and I'm working on my card as I'm creating my template. You know, it's kind of how I roll. So I'm starting with my card base here. So it was, when I was filming it, I was like, well, do I do it this way or do I do it that way? And I decided, I'm not going to do extra steps just to make it, I don't know, editing easier. So now I'm just going to fumble with my fucking words because, you know, I left it all in. So anyways, I'm going to put my, you want to use foam tape on the back of your circle piece here. I usually just take a a rectangle piece, cut it in half, put it on either side. There's multiple ways. As long as you have a little bit of foam tape on that back piece, of course, I'm, you know, going to struggle with the brad on this one, but I know I'm going to have to pop it off. So I think I left it this way, and then I will fix it later on. So once I have this done, I have it lined up, kind of figured out where I'm, you know, the farthest up that I can put it. I really wanted, or the farthest down I can put it, because I really, really, really wanted to have a little bit more space down below. And so I'm going to hold it in place with a piece of washi tape. And this is, I'm going to tell you, once you have it all stamped, ready to go, that is the easiest way to make it all, like, work. Like, just put washi on that front panel. So once I have that done, I think I only removed one of the pieces of foam tape for this one. That way I can pull it, you know, I can lift it up a little bit, flip my brad the other way around, and make it work. So here is where I'm going to take my pencil and kind of mark where my circle line is. I think for this one I didn't do the whole thing, and then I ended up coming back and maybe just doing the whole circle. Yeah, because I was like, why am I should have just ran it around, made a circle. It didn't really matter. I was going to cut it out anyways. Like, I was being difficult with myself. So once I have the first one and then the second one, and then I'm going to come in with the third one here, kind of putting it as close, of course, on this one to that circle or to the hole in the middle as possible. But this way, they are all going to be equidistant. So when I stamp them, they'll work, right? That's what I'm going for. So I have that one. Now that I have this one done, I can make sure that it looks like I'm okay. I don't know why I lined that up because it really didn't matter. That was, you know, me being me. So I have, I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay. I'm looking for my circle. So I don't want to use my big circle that I used on my globe because you could. I went down a size just because I want to make sure that my words are going to actually fit inside the circle when I reveal wheel it. You wouldn't need to do it this way. You could definitely use that bigger one, but I wanted to make sure that I was going to have enough space. So you see my bigger circle is, you know, outlined, so I know it's going to fit. And then the little circle was kind of where I was aiming to go with this one. I ended up bringing in the full circle Snark sentiments. They fit pretty good in there. I think most all of them would fit. The adulting one where the word goes way further out, I don't know if that one would work. The adulting gold stars one, a lot of those sentiments would work. So depending upon what you put on the front of your card, you know, you could definitely make that reveal wheel work for you. Now, the other trick with the reveal wheel is making sure that you line your sentiments up. So you got to realize that your wheel is going to spin, right? So making sure that you're going to, if you're looking at your circle, like your hole where your brad goes, you want to make it straight to that one or line it up to that one. So it's going to look a little funny because some of them are going to be stamped upside down at an angle. You really want to use that center point as kind of your bottom line, or where your, you know, where your bottom line is, or your horizon line is. So keep that in mind. You know, the other thing is, like, if you're doing a sentiment that's going to spin and, like, say what the, making sure that it's going to spin the proper way. I'm not great at that, so I fuck that one up almost every time I try to do it that way, because in my head I think, yep, it'll go this way when I'm spinning this way, and it's never the way I think it's going to be, and then I end up flipping it. Yeah, it's, you know, that's what arrows are for. So if you fuck it up, just make the arrow go the other way and your words will come backwards, whatever. So just keep that in mind. I did bring in some blending brushes here and just kind of added some fun color into the center because I wanted it to kind of look like that crystal ball. So when we get to the coloring of the crystal ball, it should kind of match. I didn't actually pull in, I did end up pulling in a little bit of ink for this one just because my brush didn't actually have any dye ink on it. Probably because I used like a really light pink the time before. But I just kind of used whatever was on my blending brushes and just kind of blended them together. I tried to keep it white on the outside. I brought back in my stencil here to make sure that I have enough color on, you know, all the way out. And then of course I'm going to bring in a light yellow here just to kind of give me a fun color variation. So I'm just going to kind of try to touch just the outside edge of where my color is, but still keeping it white on the actual scallops. You could definitely cut your scallop circle with a bigger size circle and then, or, you know, a smaller size circle and make yourself a stencil that way if you would, you know, feel more, I don't know, comfortable doing it that way. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, back to this one. So I brought back in my stencil piece and made sure that it looked like it was going to work. And then I inked up all of my sentiments here. I do like the VersaFine Onyx black ink for this one because this one has some teeny tiny little words. Did I smudge this one? I don't think I smudged this one. I did smudge the one that I did in class, and it was hard to read. Granted, I know what they say, but people that get them, maybe not. So make sure that it's dry. Why did I smudge them in class? Because I forgot to do the inking of the wheel before. Don't worry, my students didn't have the same problem. So on this one, see how I only did one side, so that way I could come back in and kind of squeak it in there and make it work. So, but I would definitely say if you are doing this all in one and putting it down, you know, obviously I was doing multiple card fronts and stuff all at the same time, trying to make my life a little bit easier. So, you know, that's where I say this one, I definitely could have gone with some of the bigger sentiments in here and it would have been okay. It would have worked. I just wanted to make sure that my sentiments were going to fit inside my circle without too many issues. Now here is where I'm bringing in, this is a lawn, or not a lawn fawn, this one is an MFT, no, it is a close to my heart punch. I know we looked at class to see if we could find any, we couldn't. A circle punch will work. I have an inch circle punch that I have marked where the half line is on it. And I use that sometimes because this one's really thick, where if I forget to do it before I put the card front on, then I use the half circle just to give my finger a little bit more to grab on to turn the wheel. So that's, and I usually always cut that out of my card front. Almost always. Even when I do a pull tab, I usually try to notch it out or cut it out, depending upon, you know, if I'm thinking ahead or not. So the other one with this one is you want to put your adhesive on not touching your circle. You don't want anything that's going to inhibit the movement there. So I kept my strips to the outside, and then I'm just going to kind of bring in those little rectangle, you know, the Dollar Tree foam adhesives rectangles, and put those kind of just around. I just want to make sure that it's going to be all the way, you know, I'm not going to have bump anything. If you have a smaller circle, you definitely could go on the top part there, but I didn't feel I needed to do, I could have maybe done an 1/8 inch all the way up on the top and towards the bottom. But it's really, you really want to make sure that you don't have anything touching that circle because that will hinder your reveal wheel movement. I add a little bit of liquid glue on top. It gives me just a teeny tiny little bit of wiggle room. I will say I have now used both glitter art glue and barely art glue. I think barely art glue stays wet a little bit longer. Some applications I like it for, like for this, but some applications I like the glitter art glue better because it dries really fast and I'm not very patient. So I'm just going through my sentiments here. All of them show up, so I'm good to roll. And I will set this one off to the side, and I will get, you know, my images colored now that I have my base done. So I actually did a color chart for you. So if you use Ohuhu markers, there are my Ohuhu color chart. It will be up on my blog, inkyandscrappy.com, on the side tab that says Ohuhu marker blends. That picture will be in, there's a whole bunch of pictures of my color combos, and so all of those pictures will be on there. I think it's already on there. If not, I will make sure to load it today yet. So for this one, I did speed it up quite a bit because, well, you know, we're at almost a half-hour mark and I didn't want to keep you here forever. So yeah, I start with my darkest skin tone color towards the outside, and then I'm going to do some tip-to-tip coloring with the Zero blender brush. I want to make it look like the glow from the crystal ball is on her hands. So the best way to do this is count your tip-to-tip. So I did about a 2-second tip-to-tip on this one. So keep in mind that your your first little bit when you're coloring is going to be the darkest. So put that closer to the globe or the ball on this one, and then work on your other fingers on the way out, and then as it bleeds out of that zero marker, it gets lighter, so keep that in mind. And then I'm going to show you how I do my outside, you know, kind of get that color mix in here. I just go over them. I start with my purple, I go to the red, so just kind of doing your rainbow in rainbow order. you know, you want blue and yellow are going to make green, and yellow and red are going to make orange, and red and purple are going to make a reddish purple. And then, of course, I brought in the colorless blender and kind of ran that all the way around to kind of lighten it towards, because it was a little bit darker than maybe I wanted. So just kind of doing the colorless blender over the top will kind of help to lighten it a little bit. It'll push that color a little bit out, and it'll kind of fade it a little bit. I'm going to bring in the Ohuhu glitter markers. I will say everybody in class that used them, I think they all ordered them now. So they were well loved. I will say I really enjoyed them. I love the glitter to them, and they're very easy to use. I will say shake them before you use them every time, and then practice, like, you know, start it on a piece of scratch paper just to make sure that it is flowing well. But I love the definite intense glitter to this one, and it stays on, it doesn't flake off. And so the top one there I did with like the gold on the base, and then purple nails, because, you know, it went with all of the purples. And then I brought in these metallic markers. I think I picked these up at the Dollar General, and so they were okay. But so you could definitely do that black base. If you don't like the black base, you can do the glitter, or you can do that solid metallic style marker to kind of cover up the black on there. So I ran that through my brother's Scan and Cut. It took a lot of editing to get all of the little stars and sparkles out, you know, so it didn't cut. I just wanted the hands and the globe, which is just a matter of selecting and deleting. I think I have it set so it didn't pick up all the little ones, but it still picked up a bunch of them. So once I had that main, you know, those ones cut out, I can bring in that circle again that I used for my background piece. So the bigger circle. And I just center that in the center of that one, and then I will run that through the die cut machine. And then I have a perfectly lined up globe, plus with that quarter, I think it's a 0.04 border that I put on my images with the Brother Scan and Cut. It, you know, gives you a little bit of wiggle room, so if you weren't quite on center, you could make it work. So for my bottom piece, I'm bringing in a different sentiment. I was like, oh, my crystal ball. And I was like, I just wasn't loving that one. It didn't really fit on the top, or I just really didn't want it on the bottom. I could have definitely put it on the bottom. It was skinny, and I wanted something a little bit bigger. And so I thought this one was hilarious. If you think the things I say are bad, you should hear what I keep to myself. Yeah, which is hilarious with the sayings that are in the crystal ball, because, you know, like, what in the actual fuck, or what does it say? What, and I mean in the actual, I don't know. I'll try to read them at the end. Anyway, so I did not like my coloring. I left this part in because, you know, this is how I create. This is how people are like, well, your cards are so extra. And I'm like, well, because I try things, and if I don't like it, I just modify and keep on going. I'm not going to scrap something just because it didn't stamp right. Well, that's what sentiment dies are for, or, you know, other things are for. So I brought in a piece of purple cardstock. I liked the purple a lot better on that cream base. I think it just kind of added that pop. And of course, with the purple glitter nails, it was like perfect. So I brought in those sentiment strips. So if you don't have sentiment strips and you have a die cut machine, I will say that is probably my saving grace 90% of the time. I mean, you can definitely just, you know, use a cutter to just cut strips, but my cutting skills are not on par. They really fucking suck, okay? And I can never cut a straight line to save my soul. Nothing is ever freaking square, alright? So that's why I use dies. It just makes my life a little bit easier, and it looks like I'm a little more professional than I actually am. So I just run through I scooted over my sentiment die there and got the flag on the other side there. And I know it's going to fit over my semi-botch. I mean, my sentiment's not bad. I just didn't think it popped enough. So this way I can just pop that over the top of the sentiment. Granted, if I would have kind of had it off-center, or it would have been really, maybe it was crooked. I don't know. Anyways, so you can always cut your banner a little bit bigger, you know, using a bigger banner to, like, if you need to center it a little bit better. So keep that in mind if maybe you're not on center or it's crooked and you want to cover that up. Just making sure that your piece that you're covering it with is a little bit bigger than your boo-boo. Yep. So I added the banner on. I thought about adding the My Crystal Ball Says, and then I decided, no, I really didn't like it on top there. I thought it was too much. And so I decided to add that onto the inside with a sentiment. So My Crystal Ball Says, and then adulting. Fuck that. Yep. That's where I went with this one. So I like to stamp. I hadn't stamped this one before, so I like to stamp it first on a piece of scratch paper just to make sure that I don't rub them or condition them. That is how I condition my stamp before I use it. And I was fine with this one's stamp sentiment, and then I'm just going to glue in this one on the top of it, kind of centering it, and you know, you could have stamped it right in there. So what, and I can't stress that enough. That's what it was. That's how that one is. So for this one, I'm just going to kind of place my crystal ball on top of the table. I tried to make sure that it was far enough down that it looked like it was resting on the table. And then so for the hands, I know the rest of them are underneath, but I want my hands to be on the top of the tablecloth. And so I'm just going to, I just use, you know, my stamped image there to kind of help guide me. Now, because I stamped the image on the base, I get the sparkles and the little star thingies that are on the stamped image, but I didn't have to, like, figure out which one went everywhere. And then I just brought in some glitter for those ones. So I think it was just distress stickles. I don't know. I use Stardust stickles a lot, so that's probably what it was. And then just kind of popped those on there. You could definitely bring in those glitter markers and do that. You could bring in some acetate and put some acetate over the actual, like, crystal ball part, so then the words are behind a crystal ball or behind the acetate, which would kind of make it look like glass. I did bring in the sparkle pen there just to kind of add a little bit of sparkle and shine to my crystal ball, keeping in mind that you don't want to use, if you're going to use the glitter, make sure that you don't get any on your actual reveal wheel because it'll stick. And because I like playing with all of the why do I do interactive cards? So I can play with them. Of course, I had to go through and, you know, play with it. So being a functional adult every day seems a bit excessive. And I can't stress this enough, the fuck. And let's keep the dumb fuckery to a minimum today. If you think the things I say are bad, you should hear what I don't say. My crystal ball says adulting, fuck that. So if you have any questions on creating your own reveal wheel, maybe you need it to be a little bit bigger than one that you already have, hit me up below and I will try to answer any other questions. Otherwise, stay salty, my friends. Stay salty. Bye.